Descent into Darkness, a Call of Cthulhu campaign. Hello and welcome back to Deathwatch's Call of Cthulhu campaign, Descent into Darkness, Season 4. This is Episode 7, and I am Keeper Travis. And today we will return to our journey to Cairo aboard the Orient Express on Wednesday, February 15th. Right. If I put all my clues and dates, Chris would catch them, every one of them. So I gotta be extra sharp today.
Well, the only reason I catch them is because I'm so wrong on like what session we're on.
Right.
Every damn time.
Yeah. Well, I did make an error. I got the day right. Wednesday does come after Tuesday, but I moved the, right? Is that correct?
We are in a Lovecraftian
That's true.
game.
The week could change. But anyhow, so before we get back to it, let's get an introductions from our players and their investigators.
I'm Brandon, still playing Bartholomew Wentworth, and now I'm getting on a train, travel all the way down to Egypt.
Awesome. I'm Chris, playing Charles Stanton, treasure hunter, big game hunter and expedition leader, whatever. Currently also getting on a train to Egypt.
I think that was a Freudian slip, treasure hunter.
I mean, they're kind of both the same for
Right.
him, but he's not explicitly a treasure hunter. Sorry. Go for it, John.
I'm John, and I'm a little confused because I thought I was playing Bartholomew Wentworth today. But I guess I'll just continue to play Joseph Thompson, who's best damn fighter pilot you never seen.
And were you an ace?
I mean, probably not with the skill that I have, but never know. I could have gotten lucky a couple times.
All right. So,
I think that's actually something we should figure out, is if he was an ace or not at some point.
what was your skill rating?
It's only a 50.
Do I have this on the thing?
I think there's actually...
Well, by
probably-
the end of the war, that's probably better than most of what they were putting up in the sky.
Well, like, was it you fought for the Americans? So, like, we the reason we didn't have as many aces is because we rotate them out.
Yeah.
So he probably would have gotten to the point where he was either getting close to it or starting to go back to, like, bases and teach.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the Germans were just, no, stay out there, keep fighting. So
Yeah.
they'd get a bunch of aces.
Okay, so today, as I mentioned at the end, we'll see you from Milan, Italy to Belgrade in the kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes.
Mhm.
And as I said, Dr. Andrews will know that will be called Yugoslavia in the near future, but only for a period of time.
A brief period, yeah.
So out your cabin window are many stunning mountain vistas for most of the day, although as you approach Belgrade, you begin to see more gentle plains and farmland. Throughout the day, intermittently, the track cuts right through a mountain tunnel, and you have these dark breaks in the train where you only have the lights from your cabin. And there'll be some pretty long stretches, like thousands of yards at a time going straight through the side of a mountain. But this map I pulled up here, our world map, you can see your journey progression so far from Boston in green. That's Mr. Thompson and Mr. Wentworth. So you guys are here in Milan. And then Mr. Stanton has been languishing in Cairo, growing fat and
Slow. Slower each day.
grinding his teeth away to nubs. When are they going to get here?
That's why I have the cigar. Just grind that into a nice paste.
But at some point in the journey, you get a tap at your cabin door that Mr. Wentworth and Mr. Thompson share. And when you answer the tap, it's young Curtis Cooper. If you remember, he's the journalist for the Arkham Argus, which is a paper put out by Miskatonic University. He's an English major focusing on journalism. Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Good morning. What
Hey.
can we do for you?
I was wondering if we might get a photo op in the dining car later. Maybe you can get the whole gang together. and I can take a few pictures. What do you say to that, Mr.
Yes,
Wentworth?
I think that's a beautiful idea.
All right, well, that's it. Enjoy your morning. And he jauntily walks off down the way. Now, at that stage, you guys can do whatever you would like aboard the train, which is not much at all, but I do have it marked here that Mr. Thompson will continue his skim read of the Libra Ivanis. Is that true, Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Okay, so on this day, the book, although fantastical to begin with, takes a turn for the truly unbelievable. If not for the odd, matter-of-fact way in which it is written, it could be dismissed out of hand as the bright imagination of a long-dead person. In fact, most of your forward-thinking brain does that, but that is that little nugget that wonders about the Corbett house that also wonders about this story. And it doesn't really come out in overt ways, but in a much more subtle manner. So in idle moments when you're not reading, your imagination begins to conjure up scenes that you have read. And for such a bizarre and twisting tale, you seem to be retaining much of what you read, although maybe short of understanding. So you finish up reading for the day with the description of a method for protecting oneself from mundane injuries. Ibon claims to have been granted this ability by Sathagua, our Lord Granter of Secrets. The method requires an involved incantation, the components of which reference other chants and mannerisms in parts of the book you have not read, or perhaps even in other tomes. In any case, there is again another short note from Mr. Monroe, which reads, "The Church of Contemplation and Our Lord Granter of Secrets. Here we see a reference to Our Lord Granter of Secrets, but in association with Sathagua, Zagua, Zadokwe. This makes the three-lobed eye symbol a confounding element, as this is most often associated with another figure, he who waits in the dark, distinct being, Father. We have learned much in recent days about the history of this group. In short, two men formed a cult, Oren and Walter. There was a schism and power struggle at some point in which Walter gained the upper hand via his protege, Michael Thomas. The cult began to worship Sathagua in earnest, allegedly sacrificing poor children. Police raid the church. Church burns down. Michael Thomas is the sole cult member arrested and charged. He escapes or is possibly killed in an explosion in 1918. Oren says the church was originally founded on the teachings of Nephron Ka, as conveyed to him by his master. Oren did not divulge who master was. Why did Corbett keep the eye symbol?" So that it was kind of like ramblings to you because you weren't really involved with the investigation at that time. Of course, you do understand who Walter Corbett is or who he was supposed to be by your research at the Corbett house initially. But that covers your reading for the day.
Because I want to make note of the ritual. I don't know what it's called.
Oh, the spell.
The spell, yeah,
Okay.
that protects from mundane harm. As that might come in handy. As at least like the as it's outlined in the book here. As if I chance upon it in this book, or maybe even I'll seek it out a little bit later. But I'm thinking of this as more of like a kind of a flight of fancy thing, right? Like that'd be pretty interesting. Or maybe I'll keep an eye out for it.
Maybe like a puzzle. Just got to piece it all together, or like someone stopping a story midway. Got to know the ending.
Yeah, I mean, something like that, where it's like it's not a main drive. Like I'm not going to go start researching other books, but may flip through to see if I could find reference to it as time goes on here. If I don't come on something naturally, but I think it will be something that I'll probably try.
Yeah, and you reckon at your current pace you have a couple more days of reading before you will complete the tome. The train and the boat ride has given you, long stretches of time where you're really chewing it up, even though it's, 700 plus pages of antiquated English. You seem to be almost a man possessed, but not quite, because I've found some optional rules for possessed, like feverish reading that I really like. So, but anyhow, yeah, so that's the reading for the day. Unless you guys specifically do something else, you only have this dinner proposed by Curtis Cooper, where he can get a bunch of photos of all of you.
Now I want a book from like Shadowrun, like Rigor 3. Yeah. I want something like that, but just for reading tomes, right. Where it's taken in like your food that you're buying, the light that you're reading by. Yeah, you can knock out 500 pages.
Yeah, I was. The gist of it is you read 16 hours a day without break, and you're basically like putting your sanity up every day. There were a bunch of cool like rules for when you like lose certain amounts and whatnot.
I like that idea.
All right, so yeah, there's this dinner, and the dining car, of which there is only one, gets pretty full up with the group of people that you have and the other people that are dining at the time. So to remind you, that's so it's the two of you and Dr. Francis Morgan, who was the archaeologist from Miskatonic, Thaddeus Grunwald, the biologist, Curtis Cooper, your journalist, Bo Whiteman, and the two men with him, and now Nigel Stedford. So you guys are populating a couple of those booths there, and Mr. Cooper has a era-appropriate sort of Kodak camera hung over his neck where he's taking all these snaps of you guys amidst the dinner and getting you to pose every now and then. But that's when you have the startling realization, Mr. Wentworth, that the world-famous chef aboard the Orient Express is none other than Pierre Dubois, the man accusing you of cheating at cards not so long ago. And your eyes lock for a moment, and he narrows them at you. But he appears to be the head chef, so the other people that are going into the car adjacent, the dining car where the kitchen is, basically, the sous chefs and stuff are coming out. He leans over and says something that you can't hear to them, all the while giving you that glare.
Okay.
Just gonna have to let it be. Well, punches lights out for glaring at you.
No, yeah.
Well, what ends up happening is your food is prepared. What does Wentworth get? You get like a French menu in here, so a lot of it has to, if you don't speak it, you have to take a look at the pictures, and it's pretty standard fare. You just wouldn't call it that,
Yeah.
because a lot of it's based off of, like French peasant meals that they've just gussied up and,
Right. Yeah,
like
well,
chicken pot pies and things
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I ain't gonna besmirch that.
Well, whatever it is, when you first bite into your whatever you get, it is infused with salt. Now, Brandon, this might not bother you in real life, but perhaps Wentworth doesn't have the same sickness that you carry. You can give me a Constitution roll if you want, or please give me a Constitution roll.
Okay. Hard success.
All right, so
I got the constitution of a brass eagle.
you've had to eat a lot of preserved meats, so
Yeah.
you're not just any guy off the street or out of the desert or however you want to say
I
it.
was in the war, for crying out loud.
You just weren't expecting it, but you recover almost instantly, and you can give me a spot hidden following that.
Does it trigger flashbacks? Sitting outside like a Mexican, like church or something.
A failure on the spot hidden.
All right, so when you glanced around, wondering who was responsible for this, you do not notice that Pierre Dubois was looking at you to see your reaction, and you don't notice his recovery. When you look up to look at him, he's looking elsewhere, overseeing the cooks coming out with other dishes, checking them personally and whatnot.
Okay.
Are you gonna muscle through or grit your teeth through the whole meal?
Yeah. Man's got to eat.
It's a lot of salt, but like I said, you've experienced that kind of eating before.
Only thing this is missing is hardtack.
And nobody else seems to be complaining. In fact, there's a bunch of comments about the expertise with which the food has been prepared.
So he's just confused.
Well, Pierre Dubois was the fellow that he accused him of cheating at cards. The chef ended up being the chef of this train car. All right, so across the Mediterranean, Mr. Stanton in Cairo. Once again, looking over your maps, as you do at the top of the day to order your mind for the problems that need to be addressed or any new ones. Also, I kind of imagine the more you look at these maps, the more you have basically a rendition of it in your mind without being able to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
You basically commit it to memory. It's burnt in there. But the next stretch of your proposed journey will take you from Marib to Walker Mariama. Let's jump over to the Arab Peninsula. So this here is Marib. And doing some quick measurements, you can see as the crow flies, you got about 130 miles there, with the elevation change down to about 2,700 feet. So you're dropping further down, which means more heat, although probably tolerable given that will be March or late February by the time you're there. At this point, you've probably had your logistics guy, who's unnamed yet, fetch a few books from local libraries that can help you. So you always have a small library there now in your suite, and so you have the opportunity of use library checks as well if you want. But you can also make an extreme navigation to sort of suss out, what this part of the journey might be like.
Let's see. Extreme navigation of a 72.
Oh, 72 would be 14.
That's only slightly worse than a standard use library for me. Man.
Well, you could try to he doesn't read, so that's not going to work.
If this fails, could also like talking to current locals, maybe trying to find someone who hails from the region or has been there.
They have a few universities nearby, that sort of thing. You could always leave it to your social graces.
All right. I'll try looking through the books. I think if Stanton fails this, which he most likely will, it'll just be par for course. He doesn't probably like reading. He would rather be there.
He's a man of action.
Yeah. So, no.
Oh, you got it.
But he'll still start to become more and more prickly as the day goes on. With each turn of the page, he'll grumble more.
Yeah, Francesco's, wanting to ask questions about, are we going to do anything fun here? That sort of thing.
I think that'd be a good excuse. So after the end of that library library roll, Stanton will snap the book shut.
Right.
What is it, boy? Take his anger and frustrations out on the Italian.
Nothing. I'll just to be over here.
It's obviously something. So what is it?
Are you ready for tea?
No.
Just checking.
I think we should go out for a bit, stretch our legs.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, what you were able to glean from your read of this section, you learned that Marib is based in an ancient city that they call the Sabaean culture, and that actually might be where Queen Sheba hails from in the biblical story, the queen that comes to meet with Solomon, I think. So they have some sites there that date back to antiquity, like a huge dam it speaks a lot about. But that's not what you're interested in. You're interested in the terrain, and what you're able to glean since you're coming down from the highlands is that you're in a rocky desert with very little sign of human life, except for the Bedouin, and there are oases here and there. So it's possible during that stretch that you might, be able to get water without having to carry it the whole way, and that given the change in elevation, heat may become a problem, because you have to think, even if it's 85 degrees, this is out in the open, very little retreat from the sun beating down on you. So wearing over a day, one of the concerns you have is being able to have shade when you can't find it. So you can add that to Ibrahim's list of, things to add in there, lightweight tents or canopies and the sort. While you taking a break from reading, you can look out the balcony. Your suite faces to the east, and that's a part of medieval Cairo called the Sharia Musky. It's a big bazaar area, and it's a little poorer than the one you're in currently. So you have like these old 2-story structures on each side of the street, and it's a warren of streets. They run this way and that. The lower levels of these structures are usually where the shops are. They set up, the street vendors just outside the shop, and the upper levels are shabby apartments. In fact, as you look out, just for a brief respite from the horrible, awful reading, you just see somebody tossing the chamber pot contents just out into the street, right? But so you want to get out of the room for a minute?
Yeah. Oh man, what's his name? Francesco?
Yeah.
Francesco, fetch me my coat and walking stick. I'll leave a quick memo to Ibrahim if he should stop by, but I probably wouldn't be expecting him until like evening.
Right.
And it will say, stepped out for a bit, go, what was it, like imbibe or some of the local culture.
So yeah, the section that you're staying in, as I mentioned a previous session, is called the Ezbakia, or the New Quarter. as you might call it, and it's sort of the hub of European life here, meaning that this is the tourist trap part, or where tourists would stay. Of course, they would all go out to the pyramids or to Old Cairo and look at the Roman fort there, or the old mosques there. But so there are plenty of restaurants to cater to your taste.
All right.
A few of them that you see are a place called Celestino, Flash, the Ritz, El Hati, or Luna Park. And there's a lot of French influence here. So a lot in the architecture, and you hear a lot of French spoken at people sitting outside the cafes. About this time of year, you're looking at a nice 70
Tourist.
70 degree. It's really, it's a lot like where you're from, actually. It's a touch more humid because you're right on the river here, but it's very comfortable for you to be out and strolling.
Yeah. And it would be a prime time because it's like, it'd be like pretty cold in the Americas. And
Yeah.
I don't know about Europe at this point in time.
So yeah, you got these French cuisines. The Celestino is actually the name of the restaurant right next to Shepherd's Hotel. And they specialize in French cuisine and wine.
Well, boy, I'll leave it up to you today. Do we dine on French cuisine, or do you prefer street fare?
He's like, well, what about that place? And he points over to the El Hati, which is advertising native Cairo, Cairoian cuisine, right? So, and Egyptian delicacies and whatnot.
Oh, Egyptian it is then.
Okay.
And I guess, what would be a good saunter? Would that be
Right.
that kind
I feel
of,
like that's a good Stanton move to saunter. Yeah.
yeah, saunter on over, go on in. I'll expect, I'll stop in front of the door. I was like, it's your job to open that. If it's closed.
Oh, right. I'm
Earn
still
your
new.
pay, boy.
So he does. He opens it, and you go, and it's a dim interior, but it is in the European style, despite them serving native dishes here. And they have a good standard of service. And it kind of clashes when you see the plates, coming through the dining area where they don't look like the food you're used to eating, because they're all kinds of different
And
Egyptian cuisine.
Like, I'll find, oh man, my brain is blanking on everything today. The, not receptionist, the, dang it, the person that's going to most likely greet and seat me.
The maitre d' or whatever.
Yeah, maitre d'. Table for two.
Yeah, he speaks in a French lilted accent, when you speak English. He seems to be. And he takes you there right away, although with a second glance for the street boy that you have. Although you probably put him in better clothes since then. Huh?
Yes, yeah, at least stuff that isn't rags.
Yeah, there's just this, a cowlick in his hair and a certain look about his eyes that even putting him in new clothes doesn't get with.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you can take a look at the menu, and you can see all these dishes that you don't understand the names of, but you have like a sort of mixed pasta, which is a popular street food fare. You have a lot of beans, fava beans, garlic, olive oil, some sort of salad you see. And, that's written in Arabic and French on the menu. So you just kind of have to go by what looks good. But if you're looking for a haunch of well-seasoned and grilled meat, there's nothing like that on here. So.
I'll take a pasta and I'll order something. I'll order like a small mix of a variety of other dishes that the boy can pick from.
Yeah. So he struggles to settle on something.
Yeah, because he can't read,
Right.
so I figured that I'll just order for him.
This was written in English. I might be able to order.
It's French. It's either going to taste delicious or be disgusting.
Yeah, so you order for him and your food comes out, and it is pretty good. But you have a feeling that it's been perhaps sanitized in a way for the European palate.
Mm-hmm.
It's not quite the...
It might be sanitized for my palate, too. Yeah. Because,
that's true. You have been eating North African fare.
But for the most part, I'll just kind of use this time as we're eating to tell him how things would normally be. Like, he wouldn't sit down and eat with me normally if we were in a situation where he's working. You'd be standing to my right and he'd be my run errands and fetch me things type of stuff.
Yeah, he listens intently, but during a lull in the conversation, he fishes out of his pocket a thick man's ring and he puts it on the table. And he's like, none of the vendors will purchased this from me. Can you help me out, Mr. Stanton?
Where'd you get this one, boy?
I found it on the street.
I'm going to once again warn you that, well, in my service, it would be me who would be taking the problems that you would be hoisting your problems off onto me.
I swear, I just found it. You can give a psychology roll.
Psychology. So I thought I succeeded at psychology once.
Yeah, once.
I must have got like a 1 on that, because it's still a 10.
I was looking at your skill increases, and you're definitely behind.
Yeah.
But so here's the problem with Francesco is he can be telling you something that you can see for yourself is true, and it still sounds like he's lying. He just has that slickness to him. So I mean, where has he gone since he's been here on little errands for you within the hotel?
No, he's probably stealing from someone.
So
I'll look to see if there's any identifying marks on it.
it seems to be a class ring, although
Russian?
no,
Okay.
no, it has French writing on it, or it's written in French, as near as you can tell.
So I'm going to let you go this time, but I would inform you that if you were to steal from any of the local citizens, that you do not fence it in the local area. Wait till we move on to the next locale. Can you do that, you little sneak thief?
It's like, yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Because the current population is far too small, and such valuable items are easy to trace back. Use your brain. I know God gave you one.
Yeah, he's unable to make eye contact, and he's just sort of scrunching in on himself, staring paralyzed at his food in front of him.
I'll give it back to him.
Don't let anyone else see that. Rumors spread.
Plucks it from the table and stuffs it in his pocket. All right. So moving on from here, if you have nothing further that you guys want to do specifically for the day, we can move on to the next day, which would be February 16th, Thursday. So for today, Mr. Thompson and Mr. Wentworth, your journey will see you from Belgrade to Nice, which is into the Republic of Turkey, what was once the heart of the Ottoman Empire. By nightfall, you will be a mere 10 hours away from Constantinople. The train once again labors through mountainous terrain for most of the day. And on this day, the only thing I have penciled in for is further reading. Is that going to be true, Mr. Thompson?
Correct.
All right, so skim reading the Liber Ivanus for this day. In this section of the book, Ivan relates the story of another Hyperborean sorcerer named Evog and his encounters with a worm-like creature called Lim Shaikorth. This being claimed to be a god and inhabited a vast iceberg called Yakilth and wreaked much havoc in Hyperborea. Evog, who had come to believe Shaikorth was not a god but an entity from the stars, was able to subdue the being and shatter Yakilth. However, his victory came at the cost of his own life, and there is some indication that the entity escaped, at least in part, to lands in the south. Prominent in this story is this description of a spell called by Evog, Barrier of Knock Teeth, which was important in his confrontation with the White Worm. Again, you are treated to a dizzying set of formulae and diagrams on how to harness this spell. Do you have much accounting with Mr. Thompson?
50.
No.
50? So there's something about looking through these, insofar as accounting can be fun. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced it in a way with the joy of setting up a spreadsheet, unless you're not weird like me. but there is something about these, the formula that kind of tickles that part, the more mathematical or ordered or logical part in a way. But then it will veer off into something completely esoteric, and you will be totally lost in how you might even formulate it. But that is a summary of the reading for the day, which means you have about one more day before you can complete the story of Ivan and your initial reading of Liber Ivanus. As per usual, there's a tap at the door at some point on today's journey, which resolves itself to be Bo Whiteman. Gentlemen, how are you doing today?
Doing well. How are you, sir?
Doing good. I was wondering if I might borrow your partner there, Mr. Thompson, and grab a bite to eat. I don't believe I have been talked to so sweetly in such a long time as he did the day we were making our deal. and I'd like to get to know him a little bit better.
Of
course, you're welcome to come if you'd like, Mr. Wentworth.
No, you go on ahead without me. Thank you.
I'll mark my place in the book if I'm still reading it, and slip it into my. How big is the book? Can I put it into a jacket pocket?
Let's take a look. I think I put those dimensions. Did not. No. But I think it's about 5 by 7 inches, and it's pretty thick, enough to hold 700 pages. Okay. So you could probably fit it in a jacket pocket, but not conceal it there. There would be like an obvious bulge.
I'll just, if I was reading that, then I'll save my spot and store it. If I was reading something else, since I don't know if I would necessarily just read it with everybody around, but if I was reading something else, then I'll just place the book on the seat. But I would love to accompany you and find out what's on your mind.
All right, then. Well, let's go grab ourselves a bite. See if we can get a decent piece of meat here on this train.
I'll whisper, "Don't wait up," to Mr. Wentworth. All right. Just playing. I'll nod towards Mr. Wentworth on the way out and follow him to, assume, dining car.
Yeah, so in the dining car, you get, there are all booths there on either side of the train. You get in one and make your orders, and he says, "Now, Mr. Thompson, as I said, I don't think I've been spoken to so sweetly, at least not this side of the Atlantic, and I was wondering what is the nature of your business back home?"
I dabble in a lot of things, but most prominent is sales. I've spent time doing door-to-door, driving across country, and then I believe most recently was stock, right?
Yeah, you were selling stocks?
Yeah, that's the most recent.
Huh? What, just in the city there, or what do you do, traveling around, selling them to people?
Sometimes I do, but mainly in the city, as don't really do much traveling around the country, as I've seen quite a bit of it in my time.
Well, that's very interesting. When we find this oil, and we will find this oil there, Standard Oil in New Jersey is going to need an infusion of money to harness it. What would you say to working with us, pushing our stock a little bit when we come back, getting some interest? I'm sure once we stake the claim, we know where it's at, and I can help you move a lot of it.
As I'd be very much interested in helping further the claim and increase in the value.
So you know a lot of movers and shakers there in Boston? Go and give me a credit rating roll.
Mm.
Oh, that
I
was
don't know
extreme,
why
but
I put it as extreme. Hold on.
Still, I think that's against 55 to 59.
That's weird, because it says normal, but it keeps rolling extreme. Do I have... Oh, I have the roll option up top checked. Hold on.
Yeah.
Well,
your initial roll
I've got to
versus-
use some anyways. Can I use luck?
Yeah.
As I have
You
a
could've technically pushed it.
56.
That's true.
Or if you want to take the second roll as a push, either way.
Yeah, we can this time, I suppose.
Right, I'm not opposed to using luck either. It's 10 luck.
Yeah, and you have, what, like 85 now?
93.
Yeah.
93, yeah. So mark off your luck, and basically you drop a few names that you've dealt with in Boston and who they're associated with, and this is sufficiently impressive to Mr. Whiteman. And he says, well, you do know who to move these stocks through. I don't know how much money we're going to need, but, I'm always trying to plan 2 steps ahead. First we find it, then we get the permission, and then we get it over here, sell it off to who we need, and we're going to need a lot of money to do that. Much more than we're spending now, or you guys are spending, I'm sure.
Well, as I've never been one to shy away from a challenge, as I would say, I am your man to make this happen, though.
Well, good. I'm glad we can have an understanding. You involved with any organizations in Boston there, fraternal or businessmen alliances or any of the like?
I think it's just, let me double check my notes. Maybe I don't have it on here anymore. I was with the Frenetic Order, right? Or what was, no, the ECU?
Oh, the SCU. That's like
yeah.
a informal group of academics, so not quite what he's asking about. But
Yeah,
you know,
'cause,
you're probably quick
I'm not
enough.
associated with anybody directly, but if I needed to be, I'm sure I could be.
Yeah, go ahead and throw out a persuade. It'll cover like the next 30 minutes of conversation. You know, where you're just telling them how easy it is to get that interest drummed up. Yeah, so you can spin out this idea of how easy it would be to drum up interest by putting on, you know, like what's the word I'm looking for? But you could draw a lot of attention.
I could always draw a parallel between even just getting myself and whatever his name was, that kid signed on to this. Introductions are easy to make, right? Same with friends, same with partners.
Yeah.
As 1 minute you don't know somebody, the next minute you're flying halfway, or I guess boating and taking a train halfway across the world to go seek out some mystery in the desert.
Yeah, well, you know what? I believe you, Mr. Thompson. I think you could swindle the devil, if I'm not mistaken.
Stare him down, too.
All right, so
that's where I've got this persuade from. Is the devil's already lost. That's why he looks that way.
All right, so your lunch comes to an end, and you seem to have impressed Mr. Whiteman to a sufficient degree, and we will now jump across the Mediterranean to Mr. Stanton in Cairo.
I forgot that I was already gotten off my train, so I'm going to have to amend my earlier statement. But yeah, all right.
Once again, morning, February 16th, Wednesday. Got the maps out. Got your dreaded books lying unused on a table.
Very chewed cheroot in my mouth,
Right.
Depending on what time of day we find me.
We can jump back over to the Arabian Peninsula. Take a look at what might be happening at the next stretch. So Walker Mariama is there, meaning your next location will be a nice jaunt of 80 miles or so.
To Zamak?
To Zamak. Yep.
Zamak, okay.
Bringing you down only 100 feet, so you'll be looking at similar terrain as what you've already discovered about the previous stretch of journey. The good news is that once you reach that place, was it Zamak? So I might have. These little tokens can be tricky, so it's actually a place called Musheniga.
Oh, I see. It's okay.
Yeah, and very near to it, about a day's ride, if you push your camels, is the village of Zamak. So this will be probably the last chance you would have to get things, because you have 3 villages, one's 80 miles apart, the next one's, 30 miles. And so as far as replacing camels, foodstuffs, this will be like your last hope of doing a good job of it.
Do I have any idea, I'm thinking that we might need something non-perishable for trade in these villages. Would rugs, blankets, tapestries, or would I still want to go for just more food and hope to trade it off?
Yeah, the problem always comes in more stuff is more weight, and it's not an unsolvable problem. It's just how much camels you're going to need, right? Yeah. So it's not a bad idea to be salient in that way, because bringing in Egyptian pounds or US dollars will do very little in these sorts of places. Yeah. At least by the look of the pictures of villages that you have seen in the encyclopedias that you have in your room, where they're, probably unchanged from their medieval version, right? So anything you bring from the outside can act as a currency. So it is a good idea.
Yeah. So I'll make a note that I should discuss with Mr. Bartholomew Wentworth, right? Yeah. With Mr. Wentworth about converting a sum as to be determined into non-perishable trade goods for the act of trading with the local Bedouins. Yeah. Yeah. And I also there's also another note near there, and I'm trying to figure out how many camels, because I'm figuring how much one camel converts into perishable ration. Yeah. Because I'm going to figure on bringing more camels than necessary. Yeah. And eating a good portion as we are venturing in or out.
Yeah, you know by your current count, by who you know Mr. Wentworth is bringing that. Hold on, let me pull it up here. You're looking at 43 camels just to carry them in and stuff that you have now, and you can add more to that. But and you sort of double it in your mind when you got to go a long stretch where camels might die.
Mm-hmm.
So at this stage, if you're going where they're not going to be watered, you're going to need nearly 100 camels to make that stretch, right? So
We'd be eating good.
Why don't we just take trucks?
No roads.
and
Mountains.
sand
It's dumb.
wheels. That
Those,
do
what
very
about
good.
a tank? Get
Have you seen the tanks from World War One?
yeah.
The maintenance schedule on a World War One tank would be
30 minutes.
as hard as solving the camel and water problem.
Yeah.
There's like that one single-seater one that it was basically on a motorcycle or something. Yeah.
how about we just fly, and we could parachute the camels in?
Yeah, flying is, you're looking at with a biplane or a larger plane, you're looking at the max is a 300-mile before they have to land again, which is a good stretch, but the
Especially-
landing is where the problem comes in, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, what is it? I'm just gonna go Google when parachuting was invented.
Right.
We
a good
might
question.
we might be pushing the
Halo
edge of
drop
tech.
into the Rubal Kelly. I mean, that's it seems like a lot to us, but in your experience in your part of the world, when you travel like that, I mean, that's what you actually basically hire the herdsman and his herd,
Mm-hmm.
and you take and they're compensated well for it, because for certain places, camels are life.
Yeah.
Right. You know.
Yeah, there's like I was seeing a bunch of streamer chicks figuring out how many camels they were worth.
Right.
There's like a whole calculator for it online.
Your camel price.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they're awesome. I mean, you have a favorable opinion of them because unlike horses, they can eat anything. Throw them your scraps.
And
They'll
they
eat
don't
the
need as
thorny
much.
bush. Yeah, it's like feed is maybe in the Rubal Khali, you might have to worry about that, but maybe not even then. It's anything that
They'd
is
be eating
vegetation. They'll
scorpions
just eat. Yeah. Yeah, you can just grind up everything left over.
Well, that's the thing is like I don't know about camels, but like most herbivores are also opportunistic
Right.
carnivores. So
Yeah. No,
you know,
camels will eat like whatever you
Yeah.
throw them, basically.
yeah, so they can
Yeah.
be scrounging scorpions and snakes or something too.
So you don't expect that will be like the food for them will be too much of a problem. And of course, it's just the amount of them. And you know, from your experience buying camels, you're looking at like 100 to 200 per head. So it is expensive, but like I said, camels are more than just a mode of transportation. They're like, you know, they use their fur to weave tents or hair to weave tents and whatnot, all kinds of uses for a camel.
And their crap's basically the only fuel for fire.
Right. So, I mean, that is, it's cheaper than a car, definitely. But, yeah, so there you go. So that's, you know, the calculations that are going up in your head.
Mm-hmm.
And you figure it's well within the kind of money that Wentworth apparently is willing to pay, or Dr. Andrews in this case, since he already dropped 30,000 just on your group, you know.
Well, I got a bone to pick with Dr. Andrews because he one-ups me in the credit.
Oh, right.
So there is a
You
pissing
got to knock
contest
them down.
going.
Make sure you do a little extra spending to get that credit rating down to human levels.
I mean, it's just not right that one man should have more money than me.
But as all thoughts do in this, looking at this travel thing, you know, and you're trying to chunk it up like this so you can keep it to specific problems and not think about the big, deep problem of going into the empty quarter.
Mhm.
But it's always there coming in, you
Yeah.
know, like it's a lot of dead camels, 5 days in, that's the limit. We go any further, then we all die out there, you know,
Yeah.
unless we're able to dig a well or we find one. But there's no guarantee of that. But anyhow, you're deep in that problem starting to intrude. You get a tap at the door to your suite. Is Francesco trained to go answer these, or do you prefer?
I'd say not yet,
Okay.
right? I think I'm at that point where it's almost a waste of time to have to tell him what to do, but you know, it'd save time in the long run if he doesn't run away or
Right.
you know, do something stupid. So I'll look at him and you know,
Go get the door, boy.
Okay, so he opens the door, and you can see Mr. Vanya, the elder, out there. His great hulking form. He has a serving man with him, and a serving man is toting a small shabby wooden chest, and he's, Mr. Stanton, may we come in?
Yes.
I am a vampire after all.
Yeah, I'll stand up and I'll motion him in, or motion Francesco to open the door wider and allow them in.
And the two men come in, and the serving man sets the chest on the table. This is your payment, as we spoke about, Mr. Stanton.
Did we discuss whether it was supposed to be immediate, or I thought it was supposed to be like an investment later?
Well, this is his investment. He's hoping for. He wants the initial investment for the dividends, basically, because you're an incorporated company, right? So if you make money,
he wants
he pays out dividends. There's a reason he wants to do it this way that you guys spoke about. Is because he's kind of liquidating a certain type of wealth.
He's laundering his Russian stuff.
You got it. So yeah, there's a shabby wooden chest right there. You don't have to check it for traps. We're not playing D&D. Feel free to kick it open Link style if you want.
Yeah, so I'll I don't even. Stanton would be rude on this. Yeah, I'll open it. Normally, I'd say that you don't. You'd save that for an accountant, but.
So inside is what is called a Fabergé egg. So it's an egg-shaped thing made of carved bloodstone with gold leaf all around it.
And I know it's fragile.
Right.
Stanton, probably he might.
It has a clasp set on one side where you can see it looks like it opens up, and that clasp is set with a ruby and 2 diamonds. You can give me an appraise if you have it. You can give me a history also.
A 5 appraise or a 5 history. We'll go appraise. Success.
Oh, nice.
Stanton isn't worldly, but he knows wealth when he sees it.
He grumbles. He's like, memory of Azov. That's what they call this one. Worth, I think, more than what we agreed on, but as this is how my money is carried, this is what I give to you. If you are savvy enough, you may get a lot out of it.
Well, we'll have to depend on Ibrahim and his knowledge and knuckles, if worse comes to worse, to get the appropriate amount. All I know is that this is a rare piece indeed.
Yeah, so what you do know, because it made quite a wave throughout Europe, is these were, what's the word I'm looking for, commissioned by the royal family, like dozens of these Fabergé eggs, and they were bejeweled, and inside they call them a Fabergé surprise, right? So inside an egg is a further jeweled piece. You don't know what's in this one yet. You haven't opened it.
Yeah.
You can feel just by moving it there in its velvet thing that there is something inside of it, but...
What is the chance that Stanton knows about this from some job he's done in the past where he doesn't have ownership over that piece, right? But he came across it. It was...
Well, there was a good time for looting during the Bolshevik Revolution, right?
I don't know if he's been to Russia. But,
right. It would depend if he had or not. It's up to your background.
I like the idea of it, though.
Yeah.
So, like, how long ago was the revolution in the...
1917.
So we're kind of close. He might not... we'll go for it.
I haven't seen one of these in several years.
What would it be? Like a state outside of, and I'll name a area.
Oh, like within the Russian Empire or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I don't think I have anything off the top of my head.
It doesn't matter
right.
technically unless you want Vanya to show some recognition or get mad at it, which we can figure out later as well.
Yeah, so you can, the story would be, they overthrow the czars and they just loot them, right? Because this is, in a sense, the czars trying to liberate the peasants kind of made it worse for the peasants.
Yeah.
And so they just took them for everything they were worth. And,
that's how it could be. Could have been private security to get out.
Right. For some detachment of the czar family.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe that's what they paid you in, actually, is in a separate one, or some jewels that they had. But anyhow, this one, he says, yes, this was a gift that I now possess and that you now possess, and I was savvy enough not to get it taken from me on my way out. But I have come to learn that there are 2 things that drive the world, Mr. Stanton: avarice and envy. And I do not want to appear as a man to those who are envious any longer. It is too dangerous. If you want my advice, you will change your life as well. The world is changing, I'm afraid.
Yes, there ain't much in the way of men of exception like us, Mr. Vanya. That's why I've preferred preferred this side of the world more. It seems more resistant to change. It's a comfort. I'll close the lid on the chest. I take it you're making liquid most of your riches?
Yes.
I'll see to it, so as one does not appear envious, that you receive the proper amount back. If
Right.
you're able to sell this before I leave.
He motions to his serving man, who gives you a folded piece of paper, which just has the account information for where dividends can be deposited from that point. Are we settled on this matter, Mr. Stanton?
Absolutely, Mr. Vanya. And I'll extend my hand.
Oh, he shakes it, and
Cheroot and a drink before you leave, or are you away on other business?
no, I have the time. Yes, thank you.
It's a good excuse to get me away from these damned books.
Yes, very interesting. And maps for your journey.
Mm-hmm.
I included a little joke in my gift. Perhaps you will realize it when you open it.
I look forward to it then, though I hope it's not too strenuous of a surprise.
Was that an appraise roll you got? Okay. If it had been a history, you could have had a glimpse of what he said when he mumbled memory of Azov. But for now, it's sort of a mystery, and you're like, what is, like sneaky Russians.
Mm-hmm.
But he is polite and asks after his son.
If you want, I can have him sent for and brought to you. We should be leaving on the morrow or
Let's
today.
see. They're arriving in Constantinople, so they may have 2 or 3 more days of train journey before they're here in Cairo.
And we have probably 2 to perhaps even 4 days at the most. I don't know how much my employer wishes to procure before we leave. It'd be a good time to say your goodbyes, Mr. Vanya. I warned you before you offered up your son's services, but the empty quarter is a dangerous place. There's a good chance that you will not see him again.
Yes, well, I hope for the best for you and your journey and for the sake of my son. So if you can spare him for lunch, I would appreciate that.
I'll have it done.
Thank you. Okay, so February 17th aboard the Orient Express. Today, your train arrives in Constantinople in the morning. Once known as Byzantium, it became the capital of the Roman Empire under Emperor Constantine, who named it New Rome, but everybody was like, nah, we'll name it after you, Constantinople. And it became the seat of Christendom, then the capital of Byzantine Empire after the fall of Western Rome. Then came the Ottomans, but they too have fallen in recent years. Now it is the Republic of Turkey in the aftermath of the Great War. When your train pulls into station, you can see a heavy occupation force made up of British, French, and Italian and Greek soldiers. They're just standing around. You can see like a little bit of unrest has occurred here and there throughout the city. And there is some economic depression by the amount of beggars in the street when you get off, asking for handouts. Nevertheless, there remains a vibrancy to the culture, and if your character is at all in the Christian tradition, Mr. Thompson or Mr. Wentworth, then this is like one of the ancient cities of it,
Right.
Over 1,000 years of history and tradition there. But you can see how it's been affected, like many of the ancient churches have been converted into mosques. So you see minarets glittering all throughout the cities, these towers. And so that's what it's like to roll into Constantinople. Here, the plan is you're going to leave the Orient Express. This is where the line ends. And you will board the Taurus Express for Cairo tomorrow. According to your ticket information, the Taurus Express is a series of connecting trains rather than one long line, and one stretch by automobile, which is covered in your ticket. So there's a part where no trains run. And that is going to make its way through the Levant to Cairo. But for today, you are seeking lodging prearranged by the train company. And so you're all there with your cases, motor to carry some of your bigger stuff like Mr. Whiteman's drill, which is in these big crates. Although he's gone ahead and split it up enough that when the time comes for it to be on a camel, it'll be at the limit of what a camel can carry. You'll need 3 just for his stuff. So anyhow, you're heading to where you're going to stay for the day, taking in the sights of the city, when Dr. Francis Morgan comes up to your side at your elbow there, and he's Mr. Wentworth, I was Wondering if I might trouble you today, since it looks like we're going to be here all day. I did an expedition out here, well, to the east. We were trying to find some ruins, but to no luck. But there's something I think you might find interesting, especially if you're going to make a career of leading expeditions. But if you got the time, I can show it to you.
You want to show me something?
Yeah, I think you might find it interesting if you go in for ancient cultures, history, all that sort of stuff.
Okay. This is
Dr. Francis Morgan.
Dr.
Right
Francis
here.
Morgan.
This fella. So yeah, you guys can get to your room and offload your stuff. And he's like, we got to go a bit into the city. It's in a basement of a weaver's house. You know, it's some old Byzantine architecture that they built right on top of, you know, a long time ago. But there's some interesting stuff down there you might want to take a look at.
Okay. Let's do it.
So yeah, he leads you through the city. Of course, Mr. Thompson, you can come too if you'd like. You and Wentworth were chatting when he came up and accosted you both, unsolicited NPC behavior. But yeah, he leads you through the city. You know, he hails horse and buggy to take you to where you're supposed to go. And, you know, there's some familiar aspects to Constantinople, but like even the Christian symbolism that remains is sort of off from what you're used to. Like it has that Eastern flair to it. You know, the cross is different in style and whatnot, and a lot of them aren't even there anymore, and they're replaced with Muslim mosques, as I said, and the symbols of that faith. But in any case, he leads you to this weaver's house, and he taps on the door, and a woman in her 30s of the area, by the look of her, answers the door cautiously, but she seems to recognize Miss or Dr. Morgan, and they exchange some words in Arabic, and she invites you all in, and he says some more to her, indicating somewhere into the room, and, you know, she acknowledges what he wants, and she goes off to busy to make some tea or coffee or something, and he's like, so it's right through here, you know, and he pulls up like a trap door in the floor of this weaver shop, and he leads you down some wooden steps into like an old, you would think it was like a Byzantine bathhouse or something like that. The tiles still there. And he's kind of speaking as he goes. He's like, this is, you know, 500, 600 years old, perhaps even older than that. You know, no real way for me to tell, but that's not the interesting part. This actually sits atop a cave, and there's some cave paintings down there that I think you might find interesting. So you go through this bathhouse and then down like a set of steps that was hewn from the rock that's already there into what was some sort of existing natural cave structure. And this isn't like multi-chambered or anything like that. It's just one cave opening. But when you go down there, there are a series of cave paintings, not all by the same artist, and some look fairly old and the others look more recent. But he's speaking, he says these images represent in part a supposed oral tradition passed down by the men of her family. The last to carry it was killed in Tripoli during the Great War, and so the full story's gone, as far as I know, but she knew a few fragments. So this region was inhabited by a people called the Thracians. You might recognize them if you remember your Spartacus, but here, let me share these cave paintings with you. So this is one, and seems to be the oldest. Forgive the AI-generated nature of it, but just suspend your disbelief. Here's another one.
Yeah, I'm seeing them.
And you can see the difference in artists, of course, just by looking at them. But also you can see the time frame between the different paintings. You know, they obviously weren't all done at the same time. But those are the three. And there are more than that. Those are just the three that I'll share with you. But anyhow, so he says, the Greeks, you know, they saw the Thracians as uncouth and barbaric, but excellent mercenaries. What people existed in this area before them, you know, it's anybody's guess, you know, Indo-European proto-groups. Nevertheless, according to this oral tradition that her family carried, there was a great cataclysm from the heavens, followed by a swelling of the waters in the area, so they were forced to flee to the mountains. That image there represents them going up the mountains, the ancient Thracians or proto-Thracians, whatever you want to call them. Once the waters receded, they came down from the hills and mountains and were met by a race of giants. These are depicted here in that first one you can see. They always carried with them a shining jewel affixed to a staff, These giants supposedly taught the Indo-Europeans many advanced techniques, and they built a holy place to honor the giants, a place of pillars to the heavens. That place is supposedly southeast of here. That was part of what my expedition here was a few years ago, but we didn't have any luck finding it. Likely buried, and that's just a game of whack-a-mole, basically. Anyhow, they were taught how to track the movements of the stars according to the tradition, and learned of the disaster that destroyed the homeland of the giants. The first image is a crude image of men being swallowed by waves. Next is their descent from the mountain, then the meeting with the giant. Look at the detail here. Red eyes, or red hair and blue eyes, that's Thracians. That's how the Greeks described them. And this is the giant with his staff, a celestial event in the background. According to the legend, the Thracians were altered by their exposure to the jeweled staff, which was said to glow with an inner fire. She says that her brother spoke of a codex kept at the Library of Constantinople, but it was lost or destroyed during the Fourth Crusade when Frankish and Venetian warriors fell short of their intended goal in Jerusalem and sacked Constantinople instead. According to the tradition, the codex contained much of what was bestowed by the giants. Advanced construction techniques, crop manipulation, astronomy, the secret of Greek fire, and more. In those days, there were giants on the earth. Does that mean anything to you, Mr. Wentworth?
I'm guessing it probably doesn't. It means something to me.
No Sunday school?
Yeah, but I don't know that a lot of attention ever gets paid in Sunday school.
Right.
You know.
Well, it reminds me of Noah and the flood. In those days there were giants, the Nephilim, as they call it. Depending on how you want to translate it, that could be literal giants, great ones of old, or great warriors. Needless to say, the parallel to the story is striking to me. And apparently these giants left the people of this area with a final warning. Look to the stars and watch for his return, for that will signal the beginning of a new cataclysm. I don't know what this has to do with our journey to IRM exactly, but there are parallels in that story from what I was reading in Stourton's books.
Right.
I don't know if the place we're going to is a temple that was built. It's a little out of the region we're thinking of, but they just said southeast of here, and that certainly is southeast of here.
That's true.
But IRL, he could be talking about Göbekli Tepe.
Right. Yeah.
Just because I'm a nerd for that sort of stuff now. Anyhow, that's what I wanted to show you. What do you think?
That's amazing. This is I wish I could get Mr. Cooper out here with his camera and take pictures of these.
I'm pretty sure I could convince her, if you'd like.
Yeah, I'd like to do that. Let's get him to come take some pictures of these cave paintings.
Yeah, so you can send Mr. Thompson back or something like that to go grab Cooper, and he can get down there with his little... In this case, he brings his camera on stand so he can get light correct, since it's dark down there, except for the lanterns that you bring.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Mr. Thompson, are you going to continue your read of the Liber Ivanis in your spare moments today?
Yes.
All right, so in this last section, the tale of Ibon comes to an end after his journey to Irem, followed by a bewildering series of interdimensional and interplanetary jaunts, to finally disappear from Earth for all time, driven away by his enemies. The final chapter seems to be written from the perspective of a sorcerer named Sciron the Verendarian, who was an apprentice of Ibon's. And here are detailed numerous methods to contact beings great and terrible, and other spells useful to sorcerers. Sciron claims that Ibon left him an artifact called the Crystallizer of Dreams that Sciron was able to utilize in meeting with Ibon in a place beyond the waking world. Sciron claimed he could bring the most arcane scrolls and books back from this place, but only for a little while before they faded back to where they came. And then the narrative ends rather abruptly, as though Sciron was no longer able to carry on. And following that, there is a glossary detailing fantastic and dreadful creatures, and an in-depth astrological chart referencing a zodiac-like system, but it doesn't match any sort of zodiac thing you've ever seen. And there is one final passage of note to be shared, and this comes from the tail end of Ibon's writing, and here it is for you. So, from the Liber Ivanis. Finally, in my 53rd year, I was able to find my way to the most grand temple of he who will come again that my eyes had ever beheld. Surprisingly, it was not under the waves nor even on the coast, but like the temple in the mountains of Han, it was far removed from the oceans, showing the depth of his influence over the earth. Irem, the city of pillars, the nameless city, once home to Cthulhu, the worm wizards, and other ancient terrors. Following the directions from the last remaining scrolls of Kith Canaan's confession, I found the remains of the grand gateway to whence the temple district once stood. There, next to the giant hand that forever awaits the return of the silver key, I went 50 paces toward the setting sun. Once at the column etched with worn symbols dedicated to the glory of the serpent lord Yig, I turned towards home and walked 33 steps to the dry well. Down the well, I went through the hole in its wall and into the tunnels below the sands. In a short time, I found the shrines of Nug and Yeb, and soon after, his temple. It was far greater than I could have ever imagined, and my meager words would only do it an unforgivable injustice. Now, my quest for the children of the sea and the lords they worship may finally end. There is nothing left in the world I wish to see. And after that, and flipping through the glossary and the spells there, you can close the book. Haven't finished it for now. But completing a skim read makes it possible to learn spells from the book now, John. So I will give you the spell list that you're able to glean from it.
Okay.
With as much information as I'm willing to divulge. So the complete list of spells, you have seen them in the Liber Ivanus, begins with the Petition of Chaos, and it's to call forth the greatest of gods. Probably the first one you want to, right?
Why not? I mean,
That's first on the list. Makes sense.
Right. But
Problem is practicing it.
Another one was to commune with the servants of Sadokwe, and this seems to reference the creatures that lived in the basins that were the protectors of Sithagua. Why you want to commune with them, who knows? Then there is petition he who will come again, which is referenced a lot in Ibon's story about this temple in Irem. There's a petition the key and the gate. Petition the sleeper of Inkai. You know from your reading that the sleeper of Inkai is sometimes how they refer to Sithagua. Create the barrier of knocked teeth. It's some sort of protective barrier in your expert opinion. But it was useful in Evog overcoming the white worm. There was a create mystic portal. This is some sort of gate between places. There's breath of the dark sea. It draws up mist before the sorcerer with some unique properties. Enchant knife. Enchants a small blade, evidently for use in other spells, and also as a weapon, perhaps? Question mark. Green decay, a curse of sorts. A Vorish sign, a hand gesture for focusing other spellcasting, also rumored to act as a ward against evil. The Song of Pain, a spell for causing pain and disfigurement. Call the Black, another method of harming. Seal of Isis, a ward for protecting places and things. Armor of the Will, protection from mundane harm. This was spoken about, the one that you had marked out for perhaps learning the ins and outs of. And Call and Bind Dark Hunter to Thy Will, a spell that Johann Mueller was deeply familiar with.
So I'd like to spend some time, I guess, with the Vorish sign and armor of the will.
Okay.
I was trying to perfect those.
I'll just tell you in the game mechanical sense, it takes at least 2 weeks to be able to attempt to cast a spell. So you have to settle on one. It's possible you could get 2 in the course of the journey, but it depends on what happens, you know?
All right, I'll do Armor of the Will is the one. I mean, that seems the most useful.
Yeah. Okay.
Does he know which ones might require like the enchanted knife before he picks?
It's something he'll discover on learning the spell. Unfortunately, They like to mess with you, but it won't block your use of it.
He'll learn it, but he won't be able to like...
You'll still be able to do it. It just would come at a greater cost or whatever. The knife helps you focus the energy better. So, for example, and I'm not saying this is the case, if it needs a knife, it could cost you POW instead of magic points to do it. That sort of thing, right?
Okay.
So, anyhow, yeah. So you settle on that one. I'll mark that for my notes.
As if I have time during the travel, the Vorish sign would be second, and then if there's just for future planning, if it's available still, Enchant Knife would be the third. So that way you've got the top three, or the first three, if we had the time for it.
Sounds like a plan. Okay, so we will actually leave you in the cave, Mr. Wentworth, watching young Cooper take his photographs of the enchanting paintings there.
Okay.
And we'll have to pick it up next time.
Hell yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see.
Go and get those skill rolls out there. Luck refresh if you got it.
Dang it. Nice.
Luck today.
I need to succeed with a couple.
This has been a Deathwatch production. Thank you for listening.